Televes sent me one of their latest and greatest antennas, and I have to admit it's one of the strangest ones that I've seen yet. It's one of those antennas you just don't quite understand until you really think about it. It's called the Evoca, and well, you just got to see it for yourself. Luckily, I have one right here. This is the antenna. Now, for a outdoor antenna, it's not that big. For an indoor antenna, it is. It's kind of large. And this is being sold as an indoor-outdoor antenna. How can that be? Well, take a look at the back. You see, first of all, you've got these keyhole slots here where you can just use screws, attach it to a wall, any vertical surface, and it's going to stay up. If you want to mast mount it, well, you've got this reflector here. Nice metal. And it goes on very easily. Just snaps on here, and you've got a couple of screws where you can actually get it attached. And here, you can mount to a mast. Unfortunately, putting the reflector on also kind of makes it not be level for an indoor antenna. But the folks at Televes have thought of that too. See, there's this nice base here, so it will stand up by itself while indoors, and you can attach the reflector to this second set of holes with screws, and it's going to work just fine. An indoor-outdoor antenna seems like the kind of thing to be full of compromises, and so I had to test it out. But before I get to those results, I want to show you something a little bit stranger about this antenna. It has not one, not two, but three different outputs to it. Output number one is actually, so this could be used as a 5G cellular antenna. I tested it against Wilson's most popular cellular antenna, and you can see it's pretty comparable. You know, it's not necessarily better, it's not necessarily worse. It outperforms in 600 megahertz, but unfortunately right now you can't get a cell booster that works in 600 megahertz. So let's just call it equal, and it's really just the kind of thing of, if you don't want to have multiple antennas on your house, you can use the Evoca and it's just going to be one antenna. Unfortunately, it's still two cables into the house, but at least you don't have that look of an antenna farm up on the roof. Output number two, well, that's designed for future services. You see, it receives the same frequencies as regular television, but instead of receiving horizontally polarized waves, which is what you get with regular television, where the waves go left to right, it receives vertically polarized broadcasts where the waves go up and down. This is for future use because one of the proposals for the next generation of television broadcasting is to put data services on those vertically polarized broadcasts. Hard to know if that's going to be adopted at this point, but if it does, this is going to be the only antenna on the market that lets you receive both horizontal and vertically polarized signals. Now, it's output number three. That's the one you're actually going to use. That's the one for regular television, and that's also the one where the power injector goes. Even if you're using this as a cellular antenna, you got to put that power injector into port number three. Speaking of the power injector, it's a little different from the ones you normally see from Televes. It isn't that normal chassis that you see. It's a smaller unit. It's powered with 5-volt wall wart, the same kind that you would use for charging your cell phone or anything else, and a micro USB cable. Now, we all hate micro USB, and I wish this were USB Type-C, but let's be honest, you're not going to be plugging and unplugging this all the time. It's not going to be a huge problem. Looking at the performance of this antenna, I tried to compare it to Televes' Dynova Boss Mix because they're about the same size. They're both amplified antennas, and I thought, okay, this should be apples to apples. And indeed, it is. You can see in this chart that they pretty much pick up most of the same broadcasts. There are a few that the Evoca picks up that the Dynova doesn't, and some of the Dynova picks up that the Evoca doesn't, but for the most part, they're pretty equal, and they do a great job no matter which one you're going to have. If you take a look at the gain curves, you're going to see that the Dynova comes out ahead, but
That's really just, it's got a more powerful amplifier, that's all.
The difference is that Dynova really isn't an indoor antenna, where the Evoca is. It will stand up by itself. It doesn't need any special mounting. That the Dynova doesn't fit inside because of that need for a mast. Well, you know, it's been about a week since I shot that footage, and I'm sitting here editing it, which you can probably see on the screen behind me, and I got around to thinking over the weekend exactly how cool this antenna actually is. You know, a lot of times we think about things as being disposable, and I'll admit, even at Solid Signal, we have sold a number of antennas that have, you know, been intended for you to be the first antenna you have, the first time you try it out, and not be super expensive. This antenna is not that. This is an antenna that you could hold on to for a very long time, and that's kind of cool. It's cool because, you know, what you're doing is you're reducing waste and landfills and stuff like that, but also by being as flexible as it is, this antenna isn't just future-proof. I mean, it's really good for today. Great performance, indoor-outdoor antenna. A lot to like about it, and the 5G aspect of it is kind of cool. No, it doesn't necessarily outperform today's antennas, but it does mean that you will be able to use a single antenna for pretty much everything you got. That's actually kind of neat. I don't know if I would necessarily advocate this antenna if you already had everything up on your roof, because you're probably all set. But there's a lot of folks who are coming into the world of cord cutting now. They're excited about perhaps the next generation of broadcasting, or they're just trying to save a little bit of money. And while this doesn't necessarily come off as the least expensive option, it's going to be the most value conscious for a long time, because it gives you all the performance that you need. Plus, I have to kind of give it to Televes for providing a smaller power injector, one that uses a plain old wall wart. There's nothing really wrong with the current power injector that's used with most Televes antennas, but this one is a little smaller and it's going to stay out of the way, and you can pretty much power it with anything, including most televisions. That's neat too. There's just a lot of innovative thought that went into this antenna, and I'm excited to recommend it. It's available now at solidsignal.com. Just look for Evoca, or, you know, check out this link over here. That's it for this review. I'll see you next time, and in the meantime, shop at Solid Signal for everything you need to live your best digital life.